to you to make you unhappy. In the silence of your eyes, I can see that you're blue. What did I say to you to make you feel I was untrue? Yeah.
Welcome to Dead or Alive. We have a different format for our show this evening. It's a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we're going to have a lot of different activities going on in the studio this evening. Unfortunately, our telephone line is not working. We will not be able to receive any call. And I hope you enjoy the show. Please stay tuned. And I'd like to introduce my guest, Henry Chin, who is the president of the Black Men Association, and also, I have to read this from the card, Assistant Director, Cooperative Legal Education at Northeastern University. Welcome, Henry. And as we've talked about the show throughout the past week, it was such a short time to get the show together, and some of the issues relating to Martin Luther King and blacks in the 80s, and whether the things Martin Luther King was doing in the 60s, the 50s, and 60s has really any impact on where blacks are at right now. And I'm sure you are very great with this because you're so much involved with the black community.
Mm-hmm. Well, the question you're asking is what impact did...
do you think it has any impact right now on lives for blacks, for us,
Well, I think when he was alive, he had a very strong impact on black people. Not only on black people, but people, period. I think he raised the consciousness of a lot of people, black and white. And while he was alive, there was certain legislation passed, certain concerns that the system was forced to deal with. But it seems like those concerns aren't important anymore. And whatever good was done at that time, I think as time has passed, a lot of the initial spirit and initiative that people were feeling to try to do something has been lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you see that on the federal level. I think you see it on the local level. People tend to be more laid back now these days. They don't seem to be as involved. The 60s was a time when people were asking questions,
What you say, one of the reason for that is because I guess in the 60s, blacks were a lot in less positions than they are in right now. You didn't really find too many black executives, like black in theater. I mean, blacks were not as influent as they are today. What you say that at that point they maybe had an incentive to really go and do something and try to get there. And don't you think that maybe that has something to do with it?
Well, that might have something to do with it, but I would say that the most black people are still suffering. I mean, really, conditions have not changed that much. You see more people in certain fields of endeavor, but for a large group of black people, their suffering still continues today. And I think it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get any better.
You think it's going to get worse? In fact, more blacks will more blacks will suffer from the system than it gets. But Henry,
well, that's apparent right now. If you read the unemployment statistics, 25% of black people who could work aren't working. 54% of black teenagers are not working. And the system is not even concerned with even trying to help these people in any way. Reagan, from what I understand, would like to propose a $30 billion cut in social programs. And from what I understand, they've already been cut to the bone. And he's thinking about cutting back food stamps, cutting back nutrition, cutting back health services. And right now, we have the highest rate of unemployment since the Depression.
Listen, let's get back to this a little later. I think one of the first questions I wanted to really start with, I didn't, and I got off there's so many things to talk about when we talk about black, the 80s, and where we're going, where we came from. Is, the talk is right now, is should Martin Luther King's birthday be a holiday? I remember I was at a forum with John Davis was the speaker. And one of the things that he said, maybe you can quote him better than I can, was that we don't need we don't need a federal illegal holiday, because each black should take that day off. And to make it really a holiday is knowing that you're going to take the day off and not getting paid for it. And maybe you can talk about that a little bit, because you were so much absorbed in it, but I knew you cut more of his.
Okay, well, I tend to agree with John. I really don't think it's necessary for the federal government or the state government or the city government to declare it a holiday. I think that if black people feel as strongly as they claim they do about this man, that they will in their own way celebrate his birth. I don't think you need the system and the leaders of the system that oppress us on a daily basis to declare it a holiday. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I really wouldn't want them to.
But the thing is that we don't have a black holiday. I mean, you have George Washington's birthday, Lincoln's birthday. I mean, do we have a black holiday?
No, but we don't necessarily have a Polish.
I mean, we are part of this country.
Yeah, but we don't have a Chinese holiday. We don't have a Polish holiday.
Well, but hey,
but it doesn't.
The way I look at it, Henry, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at it in the wrong point of view. But the way I look at it is that we are Americans, whether we're black or whatever we are Americans, and we are part of America. So if we have a hero from our people, there should be a holiday for him. In the same way, there is a statue for George Washington. As I was interviewing on the streets, and one lady said that, yeah, there should be a statue for Martin Luther King, because he contributed a lot to the Negro race. And I really believe that. And it should be a holiday, and it should be, we should have our own black people, have holidays for them, have statues for them, because they've done something. And the talk, I mean, people have been talking around, hey, let's go back to Africa, that's where we came from. But realistically speaking, it may never happen going back to Africa. But hey, it's our country, we live here, let's try to make the best out of it. Let's try to take advantage, and let's take our rights. Let's have holidays for our people.
Well, I really don't think you need an outside group or the government to sanction whether you celebrate somebody's birthday or not.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
The other thing is that I think that black people have to start working together with each other, and forming groups and communicating with each other about their problems or what needs to be done about it. They need to come together, to work together with each other to improve our own situation. It's time for us to stop asking them for anything. It's time for us to start asking ourselves, what is it that we want? What is it that we need? And and what can we do to make what we want to happen happen? We've gotten into the syndrome of always asking them, whether it be the government, whether it be the white man, whether it be whomever, for what we want, when we don't need to ask them for anything. We need to come together and decide what our agenda is going to be, and act upon it.
I agree, because as you said, we don't have to ask for something that belongs to us. And I feel like a kid going to mine and say, hey, Mom, can I have 10 cents? By the way, I'm getting a cue that one of our readers is going to be ready to read the first excerpt of Martin Luther King's life. And to talk a little bit about this, and I was doing some on-the-streets interview. I went to the high school interviewing some kids. I was disappointed. I felt hurt. I was asking the kids about Martin Luther King. Some of them have heard the name. Some of them knew a little bit about him. And some of them didn't actually know much about Martin Luther King. And I'll tell you one answer one of them gave me. Oh, I think he was a king. A king? Where? In what country? It's the kind of answers that I was getting. I said, God, I don't believe it.
Well, that's not surprising. I remember I grew up in the '60s, and in the '50s, and you would be surprised with the number of things that were happening at that time, how many people weren't informed and didn't really know what was happening, even when the man was alive. So it does not surprise me that children today don't know who he is. It really does not surprise me at all.
I mean, what about Martin Luther King is very much a part of the American history, because I have a problem separating black history with American history. Because why should black history be separated from American history? While we are blacks, we are Americans, we are part of the same history. Why cannot it be an integral part of the history, and you don't necessarily have to take a special course in black history, and let it be an integral part of our history?
Well, that's because they're telling their story, their history. It's called his story, you know what I mean? You break it down as his story. And so you are going to get information about his culture, his way of life, and what was happening in his situation, not what was happening in black people's situation.
Well, I think we're almost ready there. Our reader is, they went looking for him all over the place, but finally he's here. Let me introduce Charlie Pawanda, who is a student at the Somerville High School and also a member of a group. Excuse me, what's the group you're involved with, Charlie? Regional, a group who's doing a lot of interracial programs for kids in Somerville. And Charlie is going to read the first excerpt of Martin Luther King's biography. And one of the reasons why I'm hoping that the people that are watching the show at least will learn a little bit about Martin Luther King. Charlie, you have the floor.
Born in Atlanta, Georgia on January 15, 1929, Martin Luther King came from a family steeped in the tradition of the Southern Negro ministry. Both his father and maternal grandfather were Baptist preachers. At the age of 15, he entered the Morehouse College in Atlanta under the special program for gifted students, receiving a BA in 1948, spending the next 3 years at Krauser Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania, where he received a Bachelor of Divinity in 1951. He was elected president of the student body and graduated with the highest academic average in his class. From Krauser, he went to Boston University and received a PhD in 1955. Wherein seeking a firm foundation for his own theological and ethical inclination, he began to focus his attentions on conceptions of the relationship of man and God. King himself received of God as an active, personal entity. His salvation was to be found neither in the quest for social progress nor in the unaided power of reason. Faith in God's guidance was the essential thing.
Well, thank you very much, Charlie, for the reading. That was very good, and I hope that now people will know where Martin Luther King was born and where he went to school at. He is not what people see as an activist, a guy who just grew up from the ghetto and just got up and said, well, I'm tired of being poor and let me start a revolution, but more a very educated man who knew what he was doing, who knew where he came from and what he was trying to accomplish. And very intelligent. In fact, he went to a special program before he got it, when he was getting his B at Kozo University, and a program for gifted children. And to tell you, the guy was very intelligent. And later on, we're going to be here, listening to some of his speeches, especially the one from the mountaintop, where I was listening to the words, and it's amazing. Every word is nicely calculated, fits perfectly. And, with no mistake whatsoever, it's perfect. The man is gifted.
He was inspired.
Inspired, thank you, that's the word. And in fact, I believe that he was thinking about going into medical school, but being influenced by his father and his grandfather on his maternal sides, who were preachers, so he eventually became a preacher himself. But let me ask you, if Martin Luther King were alive today, do you think that would have had life would have been easier for us blacks, or do you think it would have been worse? What do you think the situation would have been? Would have inspired more black people to go to school and be somebody?
I don't know. We can sit here and be hypothetical. I don't know what kind of influence he would have today if he was still alive. I can't even imagine what it would be like if he was still alive. I know at the time that he was assassinated that he had before he was assassinated, he had gotten interested in the Vietnam War and had spoke out against the war in Vietnam. And he was also becoming very active in getting blacks in unions. And I don't know if he would have lived much longer than he did. I think if the people that shot him hadn't shot him then, he would have been killed soon thereafter. People like King and like Gandhi tend to really come from another space, and that they are, and
his
that they are really.
philosophy was pretty much the same as Gandhi's philosophy.
It was Gandhi's
philosophy.
And but it really takes. I think it appeals to people's better sides. It appeals to people's better nature. But there are always people who don't want to hear that, and there are people who will resist that for whatever the reasons are. And people like King and like Gandhi who rise to the surface and speak of something other than the materialistic, worldly things, but speak of really a coming together of spirits, usually in time, if they amass a large following, are either assassinated or something tragic happens to them.
It's really
because they become a danger to the system that's entrenched.
To the system and society,
system,
because
right.
what happened is being powerful is, the system doesn't allow anyone to be powerful, especially if you're black. Let's come back on that. I was saying earlier I did some on the streets interview, and let's take a look at some of those comments from residents of Somerville.
Should it be a national holiday?
I think so,
Why?
because he did a lot, like he helped a lot of people do a lot of things, so.
Are they doing anything in your school to celebrate his birthday?
Well, not yet.
Do you think it should be a national holiday?
Yes, I think so.
Why do you think that it's not?
Maybe because, they killed him because I guess they didn't like blacks, right? And they didn't like what he was trying to do for blacks, right? That's just the way I feel about it, and I think, he shouldn't have been killed, And they should really make it a holiday because they have Lincoln holiday and all those other holidays, basically.
It isn't because he's black that they should create the holiday. They should create the holiday because of the man. But they are creating a holiday for him to quiet down the black race.
When you say they, who are they?
Well, by they, I mean the politicians, the people who govern us.
What do you think about? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think they should have done something about it. Something a little bit more. I don't know if they have a statue of him any place, but I think they probably should have done one. I don't know.
Do you think there should be a statue of him somewhere? Like George Washington's statue?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, since he did a lot of things, so they should do something for him.
Listen, is there racism in Somerville?
Yeah, there is.
It seems it's a very funny question to you. Why did you laugh when I asked you that question?
Because racism has been around, prejudice and stuff has been around so long. Just that, especially being black, you just gotta deal with it in many ways than one. It's something that as you grow older, you just have to live with it. I mean, in fact, you gotta be proud of what you are, not letting people put you down and stuff like that.
Do you have to deal with it, or do you have to, or is it a duty to try to change it so it doesn't happen?
I mostly deal with it. Like sometimes kids could say, call you this, call you that. And like say you're going out for teams and such, mostly because like one thing I think I know like there probably would be racism is that it's things like hockey and such. People say, there's not too many blacks that play hockey and such. Well, in fact, I play hockey, but I never put that in my mind. Like, if some of the kids on the other team doesn't like me for myself, it's their problem. It's not mine. As long as my teammates could accept me, I got no problem.
Do you have a lot of white friends?
Yeah, I got a couple. I got a lot. But
Are you accepted by them?
yeah.
Do you have you ever had any problems because you're black, being with them and you're black?
Couple, I guess.
Couple problems?
Yeah.
Can you tell me one or two incidents that happened?
Like in 7th grade, there was this kid that was really so, he didn't like blacks that much, so it was made comments and such, a lot of them, and he didn't like me just for the fact because I was black, and you know, then he got to a point, black or white, he would be beating kids up and such, and I just couldn't take it, so I felt I had to do something about it. But I didn't fight back or anything. I mean, you know, I think it's better to fight back with words than, you know, physical, like, you know. So, besides that, I haven't had too much problem.
He should have his own holiday, because he tried hard for everybody, you know. It's about all I have, you know, to know about him, you know. I really wasn't around, like, when he was around, you know. I'm only, like, 17, you know.
Do you think that he really helped the blacks to be where they are at now?
Yeah, I think he did. He really helped. He gave the blacks a lot of good rights and stuff, like a lot of different rights, you know, that they didn't have before.
I'm going to ask you a personal question that you may not want to answer. Will you marry a black lady if you find one that you're in love with?
If she turned me on, you know it, I'd do it right away. You know, if I think she's my type of person, I don't care what color, as long as she's, you know, my type of personality.
Do you think there will ever be a black president in the United States?
I was just talking about that the other day. I think I would like to see one.
Do you think it will happen?
I think years to come, I won't be around to see it, but I'm sure it will happen.
What made him a great American?
His dedication to the people, his love for the people, love for freedom.
Is there racism in Somerville?
Absolutely. There's racism everywhere. And the whole thing is the children learn everything from their parents and home. That's where the basic education starts. It's not up to the politicians or the schools. It's up to the family members. That's if you can't teach your children respect for everybody and everything in the world, then the world's not going to be a better place to live.
Yeah, I think he deserved, even though he's not alive today, he deserved the right to be celebrated like everybody else is, you know. Everybody else gets out of work, but on Martin Luther King's birthday, there's not that many people that are out of work. There's plenty of people that are working.
If Martin Luther King was alive today, do you think life would have been a lot more easier for blacks?
Yeah, depending on if they listen to him in the houses, like, saying the governor and all those, you know.
Do you think Somerville is heading like South Boston is?
Well, I wouldn't really say so, because there are parts of Somerville that, you know, just certain parts where you find people that act up, you know, and there's other parts where you can actually go and live and get along with the people.
I know that there's a very large black population here right now.
Why do you think there's a large black population? Are they afraid to move to Somerville, afraid of their lives and what may happen to them and their children?
I would be, if I were black.
Hello, welcome back to our show. This is a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. My name is Jean-Augustin. I'm hosting the show for this evening, and I have with me Henry Chen, who's president of the Black Men Association. Henry, I don't have the card anymore. Oh, here's the card. And also assistant director of cooperative legal education. That's quite a big title, Henry. You must be making something like $75,000 a year. We should change job. Now, from that interview there, you know, different people were talking about different things, whether it should be a holiday. In fact, one lady said there should be even a statue for Martin Luther King, which I think was very great. And but one important question that I have in mind is that, do blacks right now in 1983 need another Martin Luther King? Do we need that?
I don't think we need that per se. I think, like I said before, that black people, there are leaders in black communities all over this country. There are people who are leaders of their block association, who are leaders of their churches, the clubs in their churches. And I think that what we really need now is just an arousal of people's consciousness, you know, and an understanding of what's really happening to us out here. And some kind of national call sent out by whomever for us to come together and discuss these issues and to discuss a way for us to deal with the survival of our community based on what they're trying to do now. I mean, it's federal policy now. They're really trying to take away a lot of the gains that were made. And you even have the Justice Department endorsing a lot of these actions, which is highly unusual, and has not happened at least in the past 20 years.
Now, looking at Reverend Jesse Jackson and the late Ambassador Andrew Young, do you think they will ever become half the leader Martin Luther King was, or?
They both have their followings, but they are not my leaders, and I don't call. I don't. Well, first of all, I don't call any of them leaders. I think the press in this country and the media in this country has a way of telling you who your leaders are. I mean, I didn't vote to call Jesse Jackson a leader or Andy Young a leader. They don't have that blessing from me. But the media, because they have a following and because they do get publicity wherever they go, partly because the media does give them play. Now, there are other people out here in the black community that have just as important things to say as these two men do. And they might be coming from a whole different perspective. But that view
really doing anything?
Well,
I mean, for blacks, I mean.
Well, Jesse Jackson has Operation Push.
I mean, what is Operation Push doing for the advancement of black?
Well, Operation Push has been involved in really getting businesses to deal with black business, but they're black business. Like they get more black advertising companies.
My problem with that, Henry, is that these people either have it made or are on the way to get it made. Because my concern is. My brother's down Wilkes-Barre in the ghettos. And these people are the one that we need to raise a consciousness, having business for black, black businesses, and these are people that are already established. What about the people that are down there? That they don't know any better, they don't have any education, they don't have anything at all. These are the people that I'm worried about.
Okay, first you were asking me a question about Jesse Jackson and Andrew Young, and I had not finished what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just get so excited and involved in this.
I understand, but you were asking me what had they done, and I was trying to tell you that Jesse Jackson is the head of Operation Push, which has been involved in trying to get large corporations and companies that have a lot of black business to deal with also using blacks in their advertising, also advertising in black media, also hiring more blacks in certain areas of their business. So that's what he does. And Andrew Young is the mayor of Los Angeles. But they all have their own followings. But I'm just saying that I don't think we need to look for a messiah. I think within our own selves, we should have enough sense and enough concern to come together with those who feel the same way and try to start making the change in our own communities, in the places where we live, you know what I mean? And then eventually start networking. Network citywide, network statewide, network nationally. Until you build it from the grassroots up and not the other way around. Like you start some organization in Washington and then it comes down, it filters downward. I think it should start from the local areas and the networking just increase and spread out.
Okay, what about the NAACP? Are they really working to the advancement of colored people? Or is
Well,
just
if you were to listen to them, they would say that they are. And I guess in some areas they do. I personally find them lacking because some of my concerns are not addressed. I think they are too tied into the white establishment as far as their monies and where their monies comes from to actually be a real critical force for change in the black community. The NAACP has been one of the main backers of integration and school desegregation and busing and all that. And I think the issue has always really been quality education. It's not busing. And for some reason, the issues got clouded up. And white folks were beginning to think that black folks thought that they had to go to school with white folks to learn something, which is ridiculous. And so I really think that black people need to turn to themselves and to each other and set their own agenda. I think the time is gone for looking at the government or anyone else to do it for us.
As I said, I'm getting a cue that we're getting ready to go into something else. But right before we go into something else, I like to say that one of my problem is, one of my basic problems, one of the basic issues that concerns me is the fact that I'm worried more about my brothers down the ghetto. And as Martin Luther King once said it, and I think John Davis even talked about that, moving from one ghetto to a larger ghetto. And that's what I see happening with the black community, with the black people in America, and it bothers me. And if you cannot like get away from it or have something to pull you out of it, or be lucky enough to be out of it, you end up being there and never be anything in your life. And nobody's actually working with these people, because the criminals, the thieves, the everything else, and people stay away from them, and nobody's actually there helping them say, hey man, that's not the way it is, that's not the way to do it. If you really want to achieve something, you really want to speak your mind, that's not how to do it. And there is actually nobody to do that, and that bothers me. Let's talk about that when we come back. And before we change to that transition, I want to make a grand opening for Mr. Paul Everett. I've known Paul for the past 3 years. Paul is a fantastic dancer. He has always blamed me for not seeing him dance. But I guess I'm going to have the opportunity to see Paul Everett dancing to, I think it's a gospel song by the Richard family, Go. And please, let's watch Paul. I'm sure he's going to be terrific. In honor of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Sometimes you have to use your muscles while you're learning to use your mind. This part-time gardener is a full-time college student. When you support the United Negro College Fund, you help keep his tuition down, so that with his part-time job, he can continue his education and make his own contribution to society.
Hey, do a good job on that exam. You hear?
Support the United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
I need a book.
I need an answer.
Where can I get some records?
Where can I see some free films?
S-O-M-E-R-V-I-L-L-E
Somerville Public Library!
Yes? Special delivery.
McGruff here. 2 years ago in Detroit, the crime business was booming. So these folks got together with the cops and formed a neighborhood watch program. Nice going, guys. You know, crime here dropped 50%.
We made a difference. And you can, too.
Find out more. Write to this address and help take a bite out of crime.
With the audio, and our sound will not go, even though our dancer Paul was ready as it could be to go on. So we're just coming back live with Henry Chin with some of our discussion on black issues, and whenever they're ready, I'll get the cue and we'll see Paul dance. Henry, we were talking before we went into that transition there. That's the thing that actually bothers me. So how do you feel about that?
Well, the problem is really reaching a very critical stage, because there are a lot of young people out here who have no inspiration in their life, who have no one who's willing to take the time to spend time with them to help them work through their problems. I don't know what the answer is to it. I think that if I think we, all of us as individuals, if we know younger black people, we should try to be their friend and try to help them to work through their problems. I think that's the only way that it can be resolved, because there's no program and there's nothing else that will solve the situation. I think we, each of us in our own way, have to try to deal with it. I mean, by maybe becoming more involved with young people in our neighborhoods. If there are settlement houses or clubs like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or whatever, we should get involved in those things, I think, to show them some examples of people who have been able to survive, who have found a way to deal with this system in a way that keeps them in a healthy state of mind.
In fact, talking about that, you know, the slum, the ghettos, for the past 4 to 5 years, we've had 3 riots in Miami, and all of them were, was it Uptown and Liberty City, around that section. And for each one of them, they had a probable cause for me. In fact, the one that I like to talk about a little more is not the last one they had recently, but the one they had in 1980, when I guess this black man was beat up by the police and killed, and then they had a real big riot. And I was looking for the so-called leaders, Jesse Jackson and Andrew Young, see what are they gonna do, what are they gonna say. I was somehow disappointed, because they spoke and had speeches for a couple hours without actually saying much. I'm not for rioting or revolution, but these people had a reason to riot. That's the only way people could stop and listen to what they had to say.
Well, this system only deals with violence. I mean, it's one of the most violent systems.
Which means that you have to be violent.
Right. It's one of the most violent systems that's ever existed, because it's not only violent in a physical way, but it's violent in an emotional way, and it's violent in a mental way.
And even President Reagan said, or Mr. Reagan, President Reagan, whatever his title is, which I don't know and never try to know, he ever said at the last riot they had in Miami, we don't have room for that in this country. Instead of, I'm not saying that we need riots or revolution, but what kind of attitude is that? I don't have room for that in this country. Instead of stopping and say, why did you have a riot? What was the problem? How can we deal with this problem so that it does not happen again?
But see, Ronald Reagan does not think the federal government should do anything but be involved in defense. And as far as he's concerned, if he had his way, he would probably scratch out every other program that existed and let the states and the local governments take care of whatever they had to take care of. So he doesn't have any intentions of doing anything about anything, okay? He's about closing down, shutting up, putting out. He's not about really trying to assist in any way other than to arm the military, build more bombs, and continue this country's control in all the poorer countries of the world, basically. It's not only a control, in some places it's a physical control, but since we control the financial situation in a lot of these countries because of the banks and the monies that's been lent to these countries, we can dictate to these countries what their economic policy is going to be, okay? And if we can dictate to these countries what their economic policy is going to be, that means their own people are going to suffer, because whatever funds or money they have has to be paid out to pay their interest on these loans. So I mean, these Western countries, United States, Britain, France, they have these countries literally by the balls because they control the economies of these countries. And not only do they control it in that way, but you see, like at one time, I guess the Industrial Revolution started here in New England. I mean, afterwards in America, it started in New England. And I guess as things unionized, they moved further south because there weren't that many unions and it was cheaper labor. And then even before the Industrial Revolution, they brought us over here as slaves. So capitalism has always sought out cheap labor markets, you see, because that's how they make their profit. So they have moved from slaves to the Industrial Revolution, to moving to the south, to moving overseas, to Taiwan and Singapore and all those countries, and pay those people $1 a day. And then if you go down to Saks Fifth Avenue or any of these stores, they'll charge you $75 for a silk shirt that they paid somebody $1 a day to make. So
touching a
it's
little
the same thing.
My background is Haitian. I'm Haitian American, and I have to touch that subject every time I talk with brothers, is the entire Haitian situation. I don't know if you're updated with that. Haitian being at camp in Fort Allen. Just to give you a little background in that, I was working with the Haitian English Language Project at that point, dealing with Haitians that had left those camps, trying to find them jobs and, you know, channel them through the system so they could function. And I stopped one day, I said, God, you know, I don't know anything about these people. They come here and they're telling me these stories. And I got a call from, believe it or not, the Department of Justice, asking me, do I want a job as an interpreter, what they call language specialist in Puerto Rico. I said, sure, fine, let me go down there and see what happened. First of all, I had, you know, doubts about it. I said, what are these people going to use me for? I said, no, let me go down there. I have a mind of my own. I know what I want for my people, so let me go down and see what happened. That will give me first-hand experience. So I went down to Puerto Rico, you know, plane ticket paid, everything, went there nicely, was picked up in private car with escort service, and the security was top. And they put us into, each one of us was into either one bedroom. I had a 2-bedroom apartment. Every single room in that apartment was air conditioner. I had a maid who would come in the morning and do my bed, and the salary was excellent. And then I was to be introduced to where I was going to work at, which was the camps with the Haitians. There at that point, 800 Haitians there. They were living under tents. And I think the budget at that point was over $1 million for the year for the Haitians, which meant that for the 800 Haitians, they had enough money to put them at the Holiday Inn and treat them decently. They had mixed feelings with the Puerto Ricans. It was jobs for a lot of Puerto Ricans, but then again, some Puerto Ricans didn't go along with the program. So I was there and seeing those Haitians being mistreated. And like everyday things and petulant things. And I said, hell no, I cannot deal with that. How can I live not even a mile away from them in a luxury place, having the officers club and everything else, and these people living like slaves?
But were you really surprised? I mean,
I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
And even if I was living under tents, maybe I'll not have mine. But living in the luxury that I was and them where they were at, that was terrible. And you know, I had money for food and restaurant and all the luxury in the world. You know, it was ridiculous. I cannot deal with that because they are blacks. I said to myself, it's because they are blacks. Because other people come from all other places and they grant them political asylums and give them jobs, everything else. They receive them at the airport with flowers. And why the Haitians?
Because they're black.
Because they're black. Oh, I've just got to cue that because we can go on forever and ever with this discussion. And I've just got to cue that a slideshow is ready and willing to go. We're going to have a speech, one of the speech from Martin Luther King. We're going to have 2.5 minutes of that. Hopefully by the time we come back from the speech, the audio system will be together so that Paul Everett can perform.
Insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summit of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny.
Well, we've had part of the audio situation more or less figured out. And again, welcome Paul Everett to Warner Cable, live with one of his beautiful and perfect mime to the song Go by the Richard Family.
Jesus had tabernacled here for 40 days. It was nearing the time that he must go back to the Father, and the Bible gives us to know that one day Out on the lonely hill with 11 disciples standing around him. No doubt one of the disciples said, Lord, must you go? Jesus said, if I go, not the comfort will not come, but in the meantime, I'm not going to leave you comfortless. But I want you to go ye therefore and teach all nations. And I want you to baptize them in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Ghost. Teaching them to obey all things. Go, 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 go. Go ye therefore, teach all nations. Go, go, go. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and Holy Ghost. Go
That was beautiful, breathtaking. I really don't know how to explain it. Don't you think so? I mean, oh God, I envy you, Paul. I wish I could do these kind of things. Your body must be very elastic, and that was terrific. Professional dancing. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Paul Everett in the interpretation of Go in some miming. Since we're running out of time with all of our technical difficulties, we're going to move quickly to our second reading. It's Marinella Blake from Roxbury. We had to import some lady from Roxbury. Couldn't let everybody from Somerville only here. And she's going to read a little bit about Martin Luther King also on some of his achievement. Marinella, you have the floor.
Martin Luther King had been a pastor of Baxter Ave Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, slightly more than a year, when the city's small group of civil rights advocates decided to protest racial segregation on the public buses. On December 1st, 1955, Miss Rosa Parks had refused to surrender her bus seat to a white passenger and had been arrested for violating the city's segregation law. Black advocates formed the Montgomery Improvement Association to boycott the transit system and chose King as their leader. In his first speech to the group as its president, King declared, "We have no alternative but to protest. For many years we have shown an amazing patience. We have sometimes given our white brothers the feeling that we liked the way we were being treated. But we come here tonight to be saved from the patience that make us patient with anything less than freedom and justice." These words were introduced to the nation with fresh voice and a skillful rhetoric, an inspiring personality, and in time a domestic new doctrine in civil struggles. Although King's home was blown up and his family's safety threatened, he refused to yield his faith in ultimate victory. 1 year and a few weeks later, the blacks of Montgomery achieved their goals in the desegregation of the new city's buses.
That was Marinella Blake. Marinella, thank you so very much. I hope that that will tell people a little bit more about Martin Luther King. They'll know a little bit more about him. We're running out of time, which is terrible, and but we cannot end the show without listening to Milton Wright. Milton Wright is a lawyer in Boston, also a songwriter, and a singer and a guitar player. Milton has all the good qualities, from a lawyer to a songwriter to musician. This is tremendous and magnificent. And I'm not sure which song Milton is going to play, but we are very... Milton, which one are you going to play?
I'm going to play the Black Man.
The Black Man. Milton is going to play Black Man, and let's listen and be honored by his presence.
They say I'm wrong to live without commandments and set my course by not a solid hand. It seems the world requires a strict foundation, a formula's the measure of a man. Were you born your father's child? Have you always been so wild? What degree now do you hold? Would you be a soldier boy? And live with what advantage I can find. Seems the world tried to write my course down in history, and slavery persecution tries to shield my mind. I'm not here to be confined. I've a heart and I've a mind. I've 2 feet on which I stand. I am black and I'm a man. Whoa, 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 yeah. Say I'm wrong and laugh at my situation, but turn around and see me before you go. Can't you see that I'm a man? I've 2 feet and I've 2 hands. I've a heart and I've a mind. I'm not here to be confined. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a man. Understand me, just wanna live like you do. I'm a man, I'm a man. Oh, understand. I'm just a man. That was beautiful. Yeah, Milton, I would like to, I hope the squad can reach to shake your hand. That was beautiful, very inspiring. Thank you so very much for coming to our show. That was nice and beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have too much time to do a lot more that we expected that we could have done. For a show to Martin Luther King, it will take not 1 hour, but what do you think? At least 3-4 hours to really have some good thing down there. And as you know, with black, if you're doing something for black, you have to have the music, the dancing, because this is our culture. This is us. Any last word, because we have to close?
I would just like to say that the best way that black people and anyone who respected Martin King could celebrate his birthday is to start practicing the things that he preached in their own lives and seeing that that's passed on to their children and to whomever else they know, because I think it all begins with you as an individual, and you don't realize how much influence you have over people. And if everyone who actually claims they believed in him and want to celebrate his birthday, if they start practicing those things in their own life on a daily basis, they'd be amazed at the chain reaction that could possibly happen.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being on our show.
Thank you.
But Milton, I hope you're not too far. As I'm closing, I'd like you to sit down a little bit. Let's do a little guitar as I'm closing. We have about a few seconds to go. But this is so inspiring, Milton. I have to call you back. Please, let's welcome Milton back just for a little while. And also for Paul, Everett, and everybody that has worked so hard on this show. Maybe softly while I with the credit. I think that will look good for me reading credit with music in the background. I'd like to thank, first of all, the crew of the Somerville Producers Group. Producer, yours truly, Jean-Augustin. Very selfish, I'm saying my name first. Host, Jean-Augustin again. Director, John Jaffe. Switcher, Charlie Tesh. Audio, Linda Wuben. Tapes and telephone, John Pennington. Unfortunately, we didn't have any telephone today. Floor manager, Larry Yeager. Camera, Claire Beige, Marsha Green. TJ, lights, set, Larry Yeager, Charlie Tesh, Marsha Green again, and Charlie Kelly. I'd like to thank everybody who worked so hard to get this show going tonight. And it was a very good contribution and a very good tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King. And I also like to take the time to thank Charlie Powanda, who we've heard on the first reading, and also Marinella Blake on the second reading. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear, I forgot his name. Jim Curley, how can I forget Jim Curley's name?